You might be looking for minute 5 of this video, so feel free to go ahead and jump forward if you need to. But first, I am going to go over some context. So Alex O'Connor made a video about 6 years ago titled "Morality Can't Be Objective Even If God Exists." And in this video, he makes an extreme claim. Now, I want to share with you a little bit about intellectualism. Typically, you have to be informed that there is an argument to even be aware of. Like, first of all, that's the way you're exposed to things like this argument of whether morality is objective or not. Then second, you study up on it and you get involved in both sides of the debate and you gain a lot of knowledge until you get to a point that eventually you can express possibly something new to the equation. And that's kind of how you know that you have arrived, is when you can bring something new to the table of a lifelong or maybe a lifetime argument of philosophy, centuries old argument of philosophy even. Well, coming out of this, Alex pushes himself even further up the food chain and basically says that he knows more than all the Christians and most of the smart atheists. And that's why I say that's an extreme claim. He is claiming that since morality cannot be objective, as the Christians claim, and not even like Matt Dillahunty or Sam Harris, how they would frame objective morality, then Alex has put himself in a pinnacle position. Now, if he really believes that he has got a handle on this more than anybody else in existence, then I kind of feel sorry for him. But if it's a unique selling proposition, if you will say something that nobody else has really said, and if you'll make a new angle on it, if that's the advertising benefit, if that's why he said this, then bravo, good job. But let's get to the nitty-gritty of actually what he said. One of his main points of logic about morality not being objective, and it can't be objective, is this. He says, the reason morality can't be objective is precisely because good, bad, and ought can't be defined. This, no joke, this is one of the undergirding pieces of logic that holds his argument together. And it's about minute number 7 in the video where he comes out and says this. Now, he gives a little bit of a backdrop of this wide definition that he's got. And there's some back and forth about how he's using the definition and why, etc. But let's really think about this. I want you to think about this. The reason morality can't be objective is precisely because good or bad can't be defined. Now, maybe some other maybe some other apologist out there has already done a full rebuke of this video, but what kind of interests me is, why is his video about this still up when it's so terribly easy to refute? Is he really stating that nothing is objectively real that can't be precisely described? Now, before I'm going to give you about seven things or so to consider. Before I give you this list, I already know that there are some subjective elements in these. But the reason that I give these is because there is a lot of objectivity in these elements. And these are broad range topics. Now, Alex's point is, this can't be objective. It can't be objectively real if it can't be precisely described. So I'm going to give you several things that can't be precisely described, and you tell me if they are objectively real or not. What about consciousness? Now, yes, people have subjective experiences in their consciousness, and you could make a point that somebody is having a subjective long-term experience. Great, but we talk about consciousness in everyone and in human beings. And as such, there is elements of consciousness like us receiving actual data input from outside of us and these processing mechanisms that go on within us, that there is so much objectivity to consciousness that we wouldn't just label it as just a subjective experience, or I don't think it would be wise to do that. But there is so much actual data coming in that how are you going to precisely describe what consciousness is? And people fail to with frequency, but because we can't precisely describe it, does that mean it's not real? Or what about power? Like, we could discuss all the intricacies of what power is or what it might be or how to use it. And you know what I mean, and I know what you mean when we talk about power, but like precisely quantifying it, like, what is it? What about reality? Yeah, we've got perception of reality, but does reality exist if I'm not here perceiving it? You bet it does. But what is reality? And since we can't precisely describe it, does it not exist? What about intelligence? Try precisely describing what intelligence is. Or what about abstract? What do we mean by abstract? That's a range of things, but we know the things that are in that range, and then there's some fringe elements that we could debate or talk about, but abstract, a lot of things can't be precisely. What makes that abstract? Well, it's obvious it is. We recognize it is, but how are you going to put a definition on that? Or I heard one person actually make the statement that gravity could be put in this, and yeah, I could see that. I could see how gravity could be something that we could try to describe, but what do you exactly mean by that? And what about time? Now, time would be I think time would be a little more difficult, because what we mean by time is, we would say, the passage of time. And what does that mean? Well, it means change, but what do you mean change? You mean change from the present? Well, no, changing. But changing is, even though it has an element of time, it isn't exactly time. And then if you're changing from change, what exactly are you talking about? But we all know that these things and many other things that we cannot precisely define, we still know they are objectively real, and we don't say that something is not objectively real just because I can't define it. A word doesn't make something reality, because I can say very precisely Captain America, and you've got this exact description in your mind of what Captain America is and who he is. That doesn't make that real. Words are just a reflection of reality as far as humans are concerned. And so it's actually kind of an arrogant assumption to think that we could actually precisely grasp every concept, but this is probably a pretty common mistake amongst some individuals. But in the video, Alex goes a bit further, and he introduces, he's kind of like, I'm of the G.E. Moore flavor. And this is wild to me. This doesn't even make any kind of sense thought, but let's push into it. He said, basically, things can't be described to someone who hasn't experienced it. There are certain things in life that are subjective, and somebody has to subjectively experience it for them to understand it. I get that. But then he goes on to state things like, good is like yellow. It has no synonyms. I think this is literally one of the poorest philosophical arguments I have ever run across. And I hope it wasn't Alex that was bringing this forth. I hope it was G.E. Moore, whoever that is, because I feel sorry for Alex touting this. But yellow isn't subjective. That's objective. Yellow is a frequency. It is a light frequency. That's incredibly objective. And so it's kind of undermining to even say this. And this is kind of what happens, though, I see often with atheism, is that atheists kind of get caught up in these sounding board reflection. They go over thoughts in their own mind, and it sounds good to them. And in the moment, they can't see it any other way, and so it's actually confirming to them. It's kind of like the echo chamber. And so even, and I don't know, I can't remember in the video precisely if he said that yellow didn't have synonyms either, but like when I first heard him talking about good having no synonyms and yellow having no synonyms, I was like, man, I don't know any synonyms for yellow. But then I started thinking about it, I was like, wait, let's look this up. And then there's gold and amber and lemon and blonde. Wow, there are synonyms for yellow. And so what is this G.E. Moore even trying to bring about? And I think what Alex means, because I've seen him put this trap on Richard Dawkins one time before, was like, okay, so define what good is. Like, and good is hard to quantify. It is hard to be utterly precise about what good is in philosophical terms. That, yeah, but just because something is hard to do doesn't mean it can't be done. And why somebody would say objective morality can't be objective because it can't be precisely described, that's let's press this. Let's just press it. What about having no synonyms for good? What about honor or honorable? What about agreeable, worthy or worthwhile, welcome or welcoming, super, sound, pleasing, wonderful, valuable, superb, satisfying, positive, marvelous, great, favorable, exceptional, excellent, acceptable. Just to name a few. Does good not have some synonyms? In fact, if Alex's claim is that morality can't be objective because we can't precisely describe it, then with all of these synonyms and plenty more, then we actually can more precisely describe good better than we can describe certain things like time. We can even go so far as to say that good is the absolute exact opposite of evil. And with such clear definitions, I think Alex's argument, or Alex's propagation of G.E. Moore's argument, completely fails.